Okay, welcome everybody. Yeah. Just kindly confirm if you can see. Okay, I can see your message, Dr. Victor. Yeah, thank you for being there. We know you wouldn't be able to chat with us. Okay, so kindly confirm if you can see the two screens, the book and the R Studio. Can type in the chat if you can't. Okay, let me just stop sharing, then I'll share again. Okay. Um, okay. I don't know. So I'm coming. Let me just try that again. Okay. Good. I think we can go ahead now. So we're going to be looking at chapter 4 of the book Mastering Shiny. So we have a case study that is the ER injuries. So we're going to be going through this. First, we need to do a bit of analysis, data analysis outside of Shiny, then turn it into an app. So that is the main goal of this chapter. So I'm just going to start with a blank R Studio R script. So let me just push that there. I'm copying the packages that we need. So let's run this to the three packages here. So the data has been described for those who have read the book. The data is about the National Electronic Injury Surveillance System. So the data is accessible, so you can find out more about it through this link. So I won't go deep into that. So if you want to get the data onto your own computer, you have to run this code. So I'm going to copy it and run on my local system. So all we need to do is just use the link. Let me see the warning here. So warning in this already exists. No. Okay, somebody's here as well. Okay, so we're going to first download. We're creating this. It's going to create this directory for us. So any NACE folder is being created. If you look into my file tab, okay, the person is here. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to use this function for, I hope everybody's familiar with what we have on the screen. If you don't, please kindly let me know. Then I will explain. Okay. I think we are having an error here. Error in this. Cannot open. Whatever. So let me just confirm if this link is still available. Uh-oh. Okay, the link is not available here. So that would be tough. Tough. Okay, I believe I can. Let me just pause the video and the recording. The resume Okay, what we have in the code from the book is we're going to use, it created a function here that is supposed to accept the name of a file, any type, any file type. It's now going to go to this URL. And okay, I have mine downloaded now. So let me just copy the entire folder. Right. Mm, okay. Delete this one. Okay. So I'm going to extract from my side here. I don't know why the function wasn't working. So let me just extract the data. Okay, good. I have, okay. So let me go back. Sorry, please kindly confirm if you can still see my screen. I have the data now. So,
Yes.
okay, the two screens. Thank you.
Yes.
So now, so now the function was supposed to download directly from the GitHub repo any of these files. So since it's not working here, maybe it's the network. I think it's the network. So I would skip this and move on to the next one. So the main data set we'll use is the injuries. So it contains 250,000 observations. We can use the function here, vroom, to extract the data from the zip file. So I'm going to copy this, then we'll do the same thing. I should have that 15. Okay. Yeah, I have the file. So now, if I run this, I don't need to extract this file anymore. I'll just use the vroom. It can also extract data or import data from CSV as well, whichever way you want. But it's also applicable to this file extension. So because of the size, that's why it's compressed. So we should have that without any issue. So we have the data here now. So we're moving on. So now that we have the file, the data should be in the environment. If I click on that, you'll see it in a table format. So we have all the columns that are described here are all within our data sets that we've imported. So I'll quickly go so that we can use the time well. Okay, so we'll pair it with two other data frames for additional context. That's the product. Let us look up the product name from the product code, and population tells us the total US population in 2017 for each combination of age and this. So I believe we have that here as well. So we have the product dot tsv and also the population dot tsv. So if you download the entire repo here, you should have the data complete. So I'm going to copy this without the commented output. So I'll go back. So remember, we are still bringing in data. We've not started creating the Shiny app. So I'll run this and run. So we have the data here now, okay? So we're going to exploring the data. So what we're trying to do here is that before we create the app, let's explore data a little bit, okay? So we'll start by looking at this and this. So it's just trying to make us to understand more about the data. So I'll just put all this here. We would not be needing it in the app. So what this code is doing is that we are trying to filter out those injuries. We are interested, okay, looking at product with an interesting story. That's 649. That's for toilets. we're going to filter out all the injuries that have this code. And if we look at what has been saved here in the selected data frame or table, we're going to see that we have 2,993 rows. So that is what is going to display in our, just collapse the, so we're going to have, okay, the object, okay, let me run that, okay. So 2,993, so that's what we have now. So next, we'll perform some basic summaries, looking at the location, body parts, and diagnosis of toilet-related injuries. So note that the weights by weight variable so that the count can be interpreted this. So, okay, I'll just look at the code. The selected data set is what we're still referring to here. We have 2,993. We want to count based on the location, and the weight is going to be, the reference is going to be this, the weight column within that selected data set. So let me just click on this. We have a column there. So that is the weight. So whatever output that we're having here is going to be kind of tailored to the weight of the weight that we have, the weight column here. That's what we're going to be using, assigning to this instead of percentage or any other form of count that we want to do. So I'll select this. Then we should have the same thing, the output here. So all what we're doing is still just exploring. And since we're reading the book, we will go with what we have inside the book. So another one is the body parts. The first one is about the location. The second one, the body parts. And the last one is going to be that, and that was just, so DIAG gives the basic diagnosis of the injury. So we're looking at the count based on diagnosis now. So we have all this here. Let's see. So then the summary statistic of the age and sex. So let's run this. I'm not sure all these are going to be part of. So this visualization now. So we have the same visual as is also shown in the book. So I'm just interested in the Shiny app. So you can play around with all this analysis or exploration here. I'm still going to run this and this. So it's still going to be the same thing here. So should have the same thing. Okay. So finally, we can look at some of the narratives. Browsing through this is an informal way to check our hypothesis and generate new ideas for further exploration. Here I pull out a random sample of, okay, someone. Okay, welcome, Chooks. Okay. So it's pulling out a sample, a random sample from the selected data set. So that is the data set that is related to injuries attached to toilets. So now let's go into the prototype. When building a complex app, I strongly recommended to starting as simple as possible. Okay, we design a prototype a first prototype. So the challenge is in making it as simple as possible. There's a tension between getting the basics working quickly and planning for the future of the app. Okay. So here I decided to have one row for the inputs, accepting that I'm probably going to add more inputs before this app is done. Then one row for all three tables. So giving each table 4 columns, 1/4 of the 12 column width, and then one row for the plot. So let me just explain what is here. The prototype is going to be based on a Shiny app. So for what we've done so far from chapter 1 to 3, the fluid row, the actual length is 12 columns. What he's saying here is that 6 column for the first row, 6 parts of the column for the first row is going to be for the select input here. That's why column is having 6 before the comma. So that's the first argument. Then we have the input, that's the select input added into the function. That's for the column. That's for the first row now. Then the second row is broken down into 3 parts. So each column has 4. So if you multiply 4 by 3, you have 12. So each one is taking 1/3 of the entire row. So the last one is for the plot, which takes up all the 12 columns. So it's not broken into any parts. So this is what we're going to have as our first prototype. It's not going to forward. So let me bring this down. Then we'll open a new script. So I'll save this as app or chapter 404. So we'll follow through with what we've had before. So I'll save that. Then I'll use the shortcut Shiny app to generate the snippet for our Shiny application. So I'll just copy this and replace what we have here. So now this should work. Okay, let me just cross check. This should work for now. So product set namespace. I'll go through. So it's just the UI. Okay, let me Control Z. I'll only replace the UI. So I'll leave the server part of the Shiny application just the way it is, so that we can run it as a complete Shiny app, although nothing is available on the server side. So let me run this. We should have a working app. Okay, so this is our first prototype. So what we have here is the product, and inside we have a list of the names of the products. That is what we have inside of our app for now. So let me go back to this Shiny app. Okay, share this. So a bit of the explanation now. What you're seeing inside of the select input is coming from this variable. And that is what was passed in as the choices for this select input. So it's not coming from the select input by default. So this variable is taking in names. We are going to set the names here. So for this, we have the product code. That's the first one. Let's just click on that. So the product code and the title are what is inside of this product data frame or table, as you might want to call it. From it, we are creating another object that is the prod_code. So that is available here, sorry, if I run, let me just run and have it in the environment. So if we bring this out, prod underscore code, so it's more like an object with a key and a value. So that's what we have here, and that is what we are using to populate the values inside the select input. So that's what we assign to the choices argument, and that helps us to populate the select input. The other columns on the remaining two rows, there's nothing there for now. They are just outputs that are there for something to be populated from the server side. So nothing is going to be shown there. It's only this input, that's the select input, that we as users can interact, that we can see for now. So that is why it's the first prototype. So if you have any question at this point, just let me know, then I would go through again. But from what we've done from chapter 1 to 3, this is just a means of testing or showing, practicing what we've learned. So the next thing is dealing with the server side. So the server function is relatively straightforward. So first, it converted the selected and the summary variables created in the previous section to reactive expressions. So this is a reasonable way. I'll go through the code. What we expect everybody to do is to read the book. If I'm reading the book now, it's going to be boring. So that's why I want to shift from that. But the code here, I would explain. So on the server side, that's the back end of our app. We're going to create like some variables, reactive values that is going to keep the information here. We are going to bring in the injuries data set, because without that, we wouldn't be able to access it. So we need to bring it into the app. So let's just go back and copy what we have. I'll copy it into our app. So we don't need this. I'll save that. With that, we'll be able to filter the data frame or the table and filter only for the code that is being selected in the select input. Excuse me. So this code that is available here is what we're going to use to filter the entire data set of the injuries. Now, we cannot access the value, like giving a hard-coded value, but we're going to use the inputs from the select input that we have on the UI. And the code or the ID for this select input is code. So that's why we are having input $ code. And that value, whatever any user selects, is going to be what we will get with this. And it's going to be assigned or compare, like a logical comparison with whatever is in our data set. So if a user selects any of the values there, we'll compare with what we have in our data set, and that is what is going to be kept inside of selected. So with this, we have a reactive value. So anytime a user make some changes, the other information here are going to change. So for the diagnosis, we're still going to be using the selected reactive value. That is why we're having the brackets here. It's a reactive value, either a data frame format. Then we're going to count. Okay, sorry. I clicked on the pipe. Okay. So we're going to do a count, just the same analysis that we did. That's what we're going to repeat here. So we get those information. We go through another summary, create a summary statistics, it has to be a reactive value as well. So with this reactive value, we're going to create the same plot that we did earlier. So I'll go ahead and copy everything here. Then I'll replace my blank server function. I'll replace that here. So with that, I think we should be able to have the same thing that we have in the book in our app. So I'll run the app. Let's hope no issues. Okay. Yeah, nothing happened. So live coding can be funny sometimes. So now we have, okay, any question there? Okay. Thank you so much for joining us, Victor. Thanks. Okay. So now that we have the products here, from what we've seen in the codes in our Shiny app, anytime we select any of these products, the information in our app is going to change because it's a reactive value now. We're using it within a reactive value. And those reactive value, that's the selected, the summary, whenever the input here changes, the values there will change as well. So I'm going to select any of this, and you can see it's changing. The same thing will happen with the plots. Anytime I make the changes, the plots would also change. So this is the way reactive values work. So changes everything. So let's go back to the book. So if you have any question, please kindly ask. Any question at this point? This is just a walkthrough. You can practice on your own and you wouldn't get into any problem. Just copy the codes and run it. But if you're confused or you've forgotten what you've learned in chapters 1, 2, 3, the recordings are available on our YouTube channel. You can go back to that, go through it, or you read through the book. So we want to polish the table now. So now that we have the basic components in place and working, we can progressively improve our app. The first problem with this app is that it shows a lot of information in the tables. Yes, it's a lot that we hardly, okay. We hardly saw the visual, that's the plot that was created far way below. So what we're going to do to fix this, we need to first figure out how to truncate the table. I've chosen to do that with with a combination of forecast function. I converted the variable to a factor ordered by the frequency of the levels and then jump or lump together all levels after the top 5. So what we're going to do, this is what we want to achieve so that we can reduce the length of the height of the table. So this is an example. So because I knew how to do it, I wrote a little function to automate this for any variable. The details aren't really important here, but we'll come back to them in chapter 5. So you could also solve the problem with copy and paste. So don't worry. Okay. So we're just going to copy this function. Then we'll modify what we have on the server side. So I'm going to go, let's drop the function somewhere here. So, and then I'll copy this. So go to the server side. So we are going to replace what we have here, the dialog for the dialog table, the path, and the location. So I'm hoping that will not give me an issue. So let's save and run. No issues, no issues. Hey, yeah, it's worked. Okay, it worked. no issue. So you should be comfortable to just copy and paste. So now it's much more beautiful. And now I believe you can appreciate what Hadley is talking about when he's saying that, okay, we'll start with the first prototype. You don't have to get it right when you're creating a simple app, but you can start with something small. Then you continue to build on what you started with. You don't have to get it all right at the first creation of your Shiny app. So now we can now see everything makes sense and it's much more beautiful, compact. The table is not too big and we have like a compressed information now. So I can still go ahead and make some changes and we'll still see the changes reflected in the tables as well as the graph or the plot. So this is a summary of all what we've done from chapter 1 to 3. So let's go back. Complete chapter 4. Okay, let me close this up. Okay. We are on the same page now. So far we're displaying only a single plot, but would like to give the user the choice between visualizing the number of injuries or the population standardized rate. So first I add a control to the UI. So we're adding another control here. Let's be sure. Okay. Here I've chosen to use a select input because it makes both states explicit and it would be easy to add new states in the future. So let me say, this is for the code. So go back to the UI. So this is for the code and this comes after it. So let's just copy this. So we are only concerned with the first row. So we're going to just make changes to that. So I'll drop that there, save. So I default to rate because I think it's safer and this. Then I condition on that input when gathering the plot. Any question there? Okay. Okay, thanks. So now I'll copy this. This render plot is for the age, sex. So we're just adding that to our server side. So it's another plot that we're adding. We're not modifying any. So be careful when you're adding or copying all this code. It's just for you to try your hands and practice what we've learned. I'm still repeating this. It's about what we've done from chapter 1 to 3. So it's nothing new. Just go through and you'll be able to get a feel of what we've done before. So now we have another plot that we're going to add, and this is going to be available on the plot. So let me see. So the age, sex, okay. Okay, the age, sex is going to be replaced. So I'm taking out this one. So we don't have two there. So I'll run and we should have something different from the plot that was there before. So run. So don't worry, we're going to talk about reactivity in the next chapter, or maybe in subsequent chapters. So we'll get to understand more on that. So now we have a different plot that is now going to be changing as well. We don't have any errors here, no errors, nothing. So we're good. So I'll go through everything to summarize what we've done. I'm going to go through that, but let's just go copying and pasting like he suggested. So rate versus count. Where are we? Okay, I think here. Okay. Okay. So the narrative now, finally, I want to provide some way to assess the narrative because they are so interesting. Okay. Okay. And they give an informal way to cross-check the hypothesis you come up with, and it is okay. There are two parts to the solution. First, we add a new row to the bottom of the UI. So we're adding another row. So I use an action button to trigger a new story and put the narrative in a text box. Okay. So let me just put that there. I'll explain all the code after this. I'll walk you through. So I'll add a comma, drop that in here, save. Then the narrative, we're going to add an event reactive here. So we can push this anywhere within the server side. So let me just drop it somewhere. Okay. I'll make the last part of this. I'll put it back, the last part. So I'm not lost. So running this. So the screenshot of the result is this, is what we have here. So what is trying to achieve here is nothing big other than when you click on the button, it gives you like a story behind everything you're seeing on the chat, on the app. So that is basically what we want to achieve. So I'll run this, then I'll take you through everything. So how the app is actually working. So this is our final app. So if I make any changes here, so I want a story from what I've selected. So table, desk, okay. So tell me a story. 7 bumped his head on a dresser 2 days ago. DX, okay. I don't get the story that he's talking about here. So Pete got dizzy and fell in the bath. DX, left shoulder pain. Okay, okay. Okay, so let's go back to the app. So the app is working. I think I can explain what we have in our code. So I wouldn't need the textbook anymore. I will go through the code. Okay, so from what we've done so far, chapter 1 to 3, this is the summary of the chapter of the app. When you have your app, you need to have the library here, and the shortcut to create the Shiny app is just to use the snippet Shiny app like this, and you have kind of a skeleton of the app created for you. So I'll take this out. That is what we used when we started. Now we also need data that we're going to use in our app. And these are the two source of data that we're going to use within the app. So it can be outside of your UI and your server. It doesn't have to be in these two. So you'll still be able to access it. The next thing is we have a costume function that was used inside the app. And this was created by Hadley himself. So you don't have to bother yourself. We're just trying to practice what we've learned. So now the UI. So this is the UI. This is the basic function that you can use to create a UI for your app. Inside the UI, we have 4 rows: 1, 2, 3, and 4. So these rows are created using the function fluid row. We have other functions that we can use to create our UI, but we'll stick with what we have in the book. So within the first row, we have two inputs, the select input and the second select input. So these are on two different columns. The entire kind of length or width of your fluid row is 12 columns. So 8 is used by the first one, the first column, and the second one occupies just 2. So that covers the first row. The select input here is taking the product. We're going to have access to the product. Anytime the product is selected, it makes changes to the order um, visuals or controls that we'll see on the UI. Then the second one is for the Y input, like the Y axis is controlling what we have on the Y axis. So the rates here and the count. So the second row has 3 tables for the diagnosis, the body part, and the location. The third row is for the plots, for the age sex plot. And the last row has the button and the text output. So let's see what happens on the server side. So the server side now, we first of all create a reactive value. We need to have it as a reactive value because anytime the value inside the select input here that has the ID code is changed, we'll be able to access that value by using the input. The input will now help us to get the actual value from that input, the select input. So if we do this outside of the reactive element, we're going to have an error because we will not be able to get the value from the input and we'll still have an error. So that's why we need this function is either in the reactive function or in the render function. So now we're having this, then we can now use this data within any of these render functions. So for the first one, the output that we're having is for the table here. That's why we're having output $diag. So that is going to be what is going to be passed to the UI to render the table. So the table is going to take the count top. This function is what Adley created up there, and it's going to help us transform the data to just give us only the first 5 rows. So the width is still 100%. Then the same thing goes for the body part and the location table. Now we have a summary here. It's also a reactive value. This is what we're using for the plot. So the plot here is taking the summary and some if-else statements are going on here. And that is what we'll use to generate our plot, the first plot. That's the plot that is on the app. So next is the event reactive. This is a response to the click on the button. Okay? So the click on the button as well as the selected values. So the first thing that you'll see when the app runs and changes are made within the select input with the ID code is that you see the text is going to change. Okay, the text that is rendered on the app is going to change based on what we have here. Okay, so this information is going to be what is going to be displayed on the text, that text output. The event reactive here helps us to track changes from the input, the select input with the code, as well as the click on the button. So if we go back, now you see that this button has the ID story and the input from the code is what is hidden inside the selected value. That's the selected, the reactive value here. So we don't need to put that code here anymore. The input doesn't need to, because it's already been tracked inside this reactive value. So with this, we have a complete app. So either you click on the button or you make changes to the select input, that's the product, the text here is going to change. So I'll go through this again. I'll click on the app. So see the app working. So these are the tables. The first one for diagnosis, the body part and location. We have the first select input, you can see it's covering 80%, like 8 columns. Then for the y-axis is covering only, I think, 2. So you can decide what you have on the plot on the y-axis. So if I change rate to count, you'll see the changes on the plot. And if I make changes to the product code or the name, we'll also see changes to all the tables in the plot, as well as the text that is displayed here. If I want to make changes to what is on the text here, I can also click the button and you'll see the changes reflected here. So the button, as well as what is here in the product drop down or select input, will make changes to this, the text. So this is how our app works. And from chapter 3, you can now appreciate how reactivity works in Shiny app. So this is for the chapter 4, and I think this is where we're going to stop. So the next section that we're going to have, we're going to be reading chapter 5. So chapter 5 is actually it's going to be the workflow. So we're going to be looking at the workflow. So against the next session, kindly read that, and then we'll be able to discuss more. So do you have any question? So thank you, Shegun, for joining us today, as well as Stephen. We really appreciate your time here. So Victor and Chooks, Insika, thank you as well for joining us. So do you have any question or addition to what I've shown? We're supposed to interact. We're supposed to have this together. So any question, observation? Okay.
Okay, it's my pleasure being here. I think it's quite interesting, though I'm battling with my network here, so I've been on and
Oh,
off. I don't know, so I
oh,
didn't
okay.
quite follow your work in details. However, I
Oh,
would
okay.
like, I'm actually joining for the first time. If at all I can have the
Yes.
material or the book available so that I can go through it, and against the next meeting, if I can, perhaps can
Okay.
raise some
Okay.
issues.
Let me share the link here with you, so you'll be able to.
Okay.
Yeah. Let me share before we end the session. It's Adley Wickham's book. That's Mastering Shiny. So we have we have 2 other books that were reading. It was actually 4, but those for AP, they don't show up so much. So we have for geospatial, that's geocomputation, and also R for data science. So that's also coming this week. So I think one is on 27th and the other one is on the 30th of this month. So we do have people that volunteer to take the session. It doesn't have to be me. So if you are able to read those books, then you can also present. So I've shared the link to the book in the chat.
Okay, I've seen it.
Okay, good. So against next session, we'll be looking at chapter 5. Chapter 5. So thank you so much. I think this is where we'll stop for today.
Yeah, thank you so much, too.
So,
It's quite interesting.
yeah.
This is my first time of really getting to see how Shiny works. I've not used it
Okay.
before, but I'm really interested in making good use of
Okay.
it. It's a nice tool.
Yeah, it's very nice. So, and the most important thing, just like we've read in the book, is start small, then you build on your app.
On what you have, yeah.
So start with your analysis first. Immediately you get your analysis right, then you know where to place what.
Yeah,
And if you understand reactivity, then you know how each of the input or control, as you might want to call it, interact with each other.
yeah,
So, and gradually you get to master the trick behind the Shiny app.
yeah. Thank you so
Mm.
much.
Thank you too. So look forward to meeting you the next session then.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you very much. So bye bye for now. Bye.